Now, I certainly don't know everything. In fact, in many ways, I am a dumb, bald asshole. But what I do know is that if you're going to have little things pop up on screen during your television show, don't add a sound effect that goes, ah, every single time you do it. But that's what WWE did through the entirety of Raw. Every time an advert popped up for the Extreme Rules horror show, whatever the hell they're calling it, some scream went, ah! And every time I was like, what was that? What was that? Who's in trouble? And then I realized I've been trolled by my so-called entertainment. I just had to get that off my chest. I did not understand it. It's like if I'm talking to you and halfway through a sentence I go, wah! You're not going to appreciate that, especially because I know some people, like they walk around their house and they just have ups and downs on in the background. This was absolutely baffling and genuinely got me for 3 hours straight. Now, is that more my fault than WWE's? Yes, but still. Anyway, my name is Simon Miller. Let's up those downs. It was the night of grudges on Raw, apparently, or so the commentary team told us. We're going to see a bunch of grudge matches, even though we didn't actually get that many. But because of that, I'll do my own. Listen up, surprise roll up. I am sick and tired of you beating every single person in the WWE. You're more powerful than a Stone Cold Stunner. You're more powerful than a Rock Bottom. You are more powerful than the F5. But that's why now we have to meet in a grudge match, and I will surprise roll up you in the ultimate moment of irony, and then you'll be dead, and then you'll be gone. Right, that's out the way. Good. In terms of the actual show itself, we started with MVP's VIP Lounge, mostly because in a delicious sense of irony, MVP is one of the MVPs on Raw, so you may as well get him out there as soon as you can. His guest was Dolphy Ziggleboy Blue, and the story they've introduced between him and Drew McIntyre is just so weird. Now we're meant to believe, because Drew and Dolph teamed together for like 7 seconds when McIntyre was called up from NXT, he's the reason for all of Drew McIntyre's success. Put your hands up if you believe that. That's right, hands are down, apart from Dolph Ziggler, who if he is watching this is running around going, I think it's true. It's not. MVP still had his brand new US Championship and said he will own that for real at the pay-per-view after he beats Apollo Crews, as Dolph continued to say he taught Drew McIntyre everything he knows. But that can't be true, because Drew has had like a meaningful World Championship reign, and every time Dolph Ziggler has had one from WWE, they just treat him like a transitional champion. It's just a joke, I'm just taking shots. We're not going to find out what the stipulation for their match is until Sunday, which seems baffling to me, because the whole point of stipulations are to try and get more buys for your show, and then of course out came Drew McIntyre to interrupt, because that's just how Raw starts every single week. He thinks Dolph is just one big user and even dropped names in there like Mandy Rose and Big E, and said the simple fact of the matter is, at Extreme Rules, horror show, I am going to beat you. In fact, I'm going to maim you. I'm going to kick your ass. MVP then tried to be the big boy, and he stood up to Drew, but McIntyre still punched Dolph Ziggler round the side, and it's just such good booking, because not only is Drew McIntyre a dominant champion, but he also has fun. He never looks like a coward. He never looks like a chump, and that's why, even though most of this was just fine, is getting an up. I just really like Drew McIntyre. We then had the most bizarre angle with Andrade, Zelina Vega, Angel Garza, and Charlie Caruso, to the point I actually scratched my head afterwards like I was a cartoon. Down. Vega was getting super mad because she believes that her boys can beat anyone, and she thinks that Charlie Caruso doesn't believe that, and while Andrade and Angel Garza did calm her down, they were then interrupted, always interrupted, by the Viking Raiders. Now for some reason Charlie was infatuated with Ivar, especially after he had grabbed a rose from Angel Garza's hand. Obviously he was going to give that to Charlie, but Ivar gave it to her instead, and she was just looking at him like he was the greatest thing she'd ever seen. So what's the deal with Charlie? She liked Andrade, now she likes Ivar for no apparent reason. I can't keep up with this, and I don't know where it's leaving. You tell me. This was then our first grudge match too, but as I've already said, it didn't really feel that much like a grudge match. It was the Viking Raiders taking on Andrade and Angel Garza, because apparently those two have beaten up the likes of the Big Show and the Street Profits, and the Viking Raiders don't like that. Alright? But anyway, it's an up. It was good. And the main reason for this is that it was an elimination tag team match, and it's just been so long since I've seen one of those well, yeah, my interest picked up. Eric also continued to have a crappy night too, because one, nobody's fawning over him, now are they? But two, he got hit with the hammerlock DDT by Andrade in around about 2.5 minutes, and he was out of there. We also saw that Andrade and Angel Garza kind of are getting on a little bit better. I mean, there was still some shenanigans, but they even shared a fist bump here, so good for them. But unfortunately, you know how WWE books things. One of these was going to have to get kicked out, and Andrade literally did. He got spun kicked in the face, and he lost 2. Now it's down 1-1. Ivar probably would have won the whole thing too, because he then kicked Angel Garza in the face, but Andrade was out the side. He was able to put his foot on the ropes. Poor Viking Raiders, he's got no chance. For some reason, he then thought it'd be a great idea to just dive off the ropes. He got caught in a powerbomb. Angel Garza pinned him to the 1-2-3, and you gotta believe these two eventually are gonna take on the Street Profits for the Tag Team Championships, and it's nice that they have a spotlight on them. And yes, I know the Viking Raiders do look like massive geeks at the moment, but at least we seem to have a plan in place for Angel Garza and Andrade, and sometimes I will just take what I can get. And then we had quite the swerve. But up. What an idiot I am as well, because for weeks I've been going, well, I can see this story coming a mile off. Clearly the Iconics are going to keep beating up Ruby Riott until Liv Morgan returns and helps her out, even though that will make no sense, because last time those two were on TV, they were having a big fight. But that is not what happened at all. Instead, the Iconics were yelling at Ruby Riott, going, mate, you don't know what you're doing. We can't stand you. And then who came to back her up? It was not Liv Morgan. It was not anybody else you want to put in there. I was going to try and think of someone. I got nothing. Medusa. Wasn't Medusa. It was the returning Bianca Belair. Now, would it have been nice if somebody had told me where the hell Bianca Belair had been? The answer is yes, but I just said this, I'll say it again, I will take what I can get. They then had a match and Belair just kicked all the ass because she's really good and never should have been taken off TV in the first place. Eventually, she picked up Billie Kay and gave her the KOD, and that's right, she was only back for around about, 7 minutes, and she's already got a victory. And as for Ruby Riott, this was her first victory, technically, since February 2019. What? Also, the hilarious thing here is that in kayfabe now, the Iconics are actually better as singles performers than they are a tag team. Go look at the record. Okay, then this made me happy because we had 2 back-to-back segments that finally brought people back into the fold, because right away, who was here? That's right, Shayna Baszler. Up. And who saw this coming too? It started in the back when R-Truth of all people was talking to Ricochet and Cedric Alexander, and he said to Richard O'Shea, man, I'm so happy for you because you're now the MVP of Raw. As Ricochet corrected him, no Truth, once again you've got it wrong. I'm having a match with Bobby Lashley later, and MVP is going to be in this corner. Then they all chuckled away. R-Truth so funny. It then got worse for Truth because he thought he was taking on Ric Flair later, because Ric Flair had been the one that threw the challenge out there, but the part he hadn't heard, or the part he hadn't computed or digested, was that he was making this challenge on behalf of Randy Orton, and R-Truth looked like he'd seen a ghost. In fact, he was so freaked out, even though Tozawa, who just turned up and tried to win the 24/7 title and failed, he was like, Tozawa, I need your help. Please teach me to be a black belt in the next 4 to 5 minutes. Now, I just have to be a wrestling geek here. That makes no sense. R-Truth has been wrestling for 20 plus years. You've already got the experience, you numpty. Anyway, that did lead to an impromptu match in the ring for the 24/7 championship, but we never got it because, as I say, they got interrupted by Shayna Baszler, who they were so scared of, they ran away. Do you know how good that is? And do you know how much that rehabs the Shayna Baszler character straight away? And I get it, they're just comedy characters, but still, it works. Everyone, including the ninjas who she took out, well, I don't want to mess with Shayna. She's crazy. It is underlined that you don't screw with her no matter who you are. And then she got on a microphone and said, look, I am putting the whole women's division on notice. Don't forget about me, because I'm about to kill each and every one of you. And I completely believe her, because again, look at her background. Just do exactly what you did on NXT, but do it on Raw. I promise it will work. Seth Rollins, and then don't call him Buddy Murphy, were having a conversation backstage, and Murphy is one of the only people that can see how crazy all this stuff is, because he said to his beloved leader, look, dude, look, pal, you're not actually going to try and take Rey Mysterio's eye out of his head, are you? Because look, that's like some really dark, screwed up stuff. And Seth Rollins all like, oh no, you don't understand. It's all about the sacrifice, and I got a sacrifice by ripping out his pupil. What the hell is going on? Rollins was then out to cut a proper promo, and he actually said the phrase eye versus eye around about 67 times. Now, he actually delivered this very well, but I really would appreciate it if WWE didn't try and ram these things down my throat. It's like greatest match ever. That was said a bunch of times. And then the horror show with Extreme Rules, that's said a bunch of times. Now, eye versus eye has to be uttered all the damn time. You just run it into the ground. This is not how you sell stuff. Don't smash me over the head with it. Just make it sound cool and, sell it to me in the storyline you're telling. So I'm like, well, I can't miss that. Just hurling it at me like it's a bunch of bees doesn't do anything. Down. Seth went on here to say that after he does indeed rip Rey Mysterio's eye right out of his skull, he's never going to be able to see his son get married, and he'll never see stuff like a sunrise again. And I know the other eye of Rey Mysterio is hurt, but we've already been told that's going to heal. So Rollins, unless you're intent on pulling both eyes out, and my word, please don't do that, none of this made any sense. Kevin Owens was the next person to interrupt somebody else speaking, and I tell you, he's just my hero. He's always so damn good. Because he was like, look, Seth, as crazy as this match stipulation is, what's crazier is that you took Rey Mysterio, somebody that everybody respects, and somebody that has an incredible legacy in this business, and you've turned him into a crazy person who actually wants to have a fight with you where someone's going to lose an eye. So Buddy Murphy and Kevin Owens, they understand. Owens even understood where Rey Mysterio was coming from because he felt the same at WrestleMania, where he was willing to risk his career just to shut Sethy boy up. KO then won the night by saying, look, Rollins, it doesn't even matter if you do lose, because I have a friend known as Jean-Pierre Lafitte, and he gave me this, and he pulled out an eye patch, and if you don't know, Jean-Pierre Lafitte was a terrible gimmick WWE did back in the day, and he was, of course, a pirate. And I don't know what the problem with any of this is, too, because look how cool having an eye patch looks. I now feel like a badass. Anyway, Aleister Black then came out here, and he started to fight Buddy Murphy, so those two just had a match. And very sadly, it's a down. And don't get me wrong, with the few minutes that these guys were allowed to wrestle, they were absolutely brilliant. But as always, WWE just can't give us a clean finish, and it just gets so dull. Because after Aleister Black did have the match won, after he kicked Murphy right in the head, Seth Rollins just grabbed him, pulled him out the ring. It was a disqualification. We're going to have to start a DQ counter soon. We're not, because I can't be bothered to keep up with it. But for the love of everything. And then the usual nonsense kept raining down because by magic, this was just turned into a tag team match with Kevin Owens and Aleister Black teaming to take on Don't Call Him Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins. Now, the whole time I have to stand there going, I don't understand how these things get magically made. Like I say, it doesn't even make any sense and it confuses me and then some. During all of this, Rey Mysterio and Dominic turned up to ensure that Seth Rollins didn't just run away, and you already know how this ended. It was going to be one of two things. Either it was going to be the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, or it was going to be the distraction. WWE went for the latter. And I'm just desperate for clean finishes. I'm so desperate, it makes my voice go weird and shake around like a fool. Because Seth went mad at one point and tried to rip out Kevin Owens' eye, and this annoyed Aleister Black, Dominic, and Rey Mysterio so much, they just all got on the ring apron, and even though Seth Rollins could have won this match, Kevin Owens was right there waiting to take the curb stomp. He was all like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And he turned around, he got stunned. Kevin Owens kind of won, but it also made Kevin Owens look like a massive nerd, if I'm honest, and it kind of made me feel bad for Seth Rollins because these guys just ganged up on him. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good elements to all of this. Like, I like the progressive and long-term storytelling we're doing, but there are also some other curveballs that just make no sense. Mysterio then cut a promo and for the 82nd time this evening reminded us that it is eye for an eye and he's going to rip out Seth Rollins' eye and no one's going to have any eye and what the hell is an eye and eye this and eye that. And really, if this doesn't end with Dominic stopping Seth Rollins from ripping his dad's eye out and saying, look, I will join you, cult, then what are we even doing? But you heard it, this Sunday, eyeballs are literally going to roll. And then from nowhere, Ric Flair and Big Show had this really long chat that was flippin' excellent. Up. And the long and the short of it is this. Ric Flair was talking to Big Show and saying, look man, you need to back off from Randy Orton because you're going to ruin your career. If you don't, he's going to maim you, he's going to ruin you, and by the time you get inducted into the Hall of Fame, you're going to be a broken mess, and all this Hollywood success you're going after is going to be done. He even mentioned The Rock's name, like you don't think that Dwayne wants to come back? Of course he does, but he understands. I mean, that's not true, but it was a really good storytelling technique. Randy Orton then replied with his own backstage promo, and that was even better because he is just a loon. He was all like, look, Edge was my friend, Christian was my friend, I liked all of these guys, but I did what I had to do to try and save the wrestling business or save my own life, whatever the hell he was talking about. Basically, he is hearing voices in his head right now, and I can only presume the whole time they're going, like the stupid Extreme Rules shouting lady. There was also this incredible video reminding you about his old legend killer gimmick, which he's now brought back. And as it turns out, he doesn't even trust Ric Flair because he'd seen him being all nicey-nicey with the Big Show and was like, you know what? If I gotta kick him in the head as well, I will do it. And can you imagine all of this builds to Randy Orton punting the Big Show and then Randy Orton punting Ric Flair and then going on to win the WWE title from Drew McIntyre. I need this as much as I need blood running through my veins. Flair then approached him and said, oh Randy, it's time for your match with R-Truth, which was really a thing. Randy was like, yeah, cool, you go ahead, I'll catch up. And then he gave him this look like, I love you man, you're family, but I don't trust you at all. Randy Orton, ladies and gentlemen, right now, the best professional wrestler in the world. We then did have that match, and I won't lie, it was a little bit strange. Like, Ric Flair was trying to talk down R-Truth, but also saying that both he and Randy Orton respect him. And then you had the match, and it lasted around about 10 seconds. Like, Orton and Flair had promised not to punt R-Truth, so instead Randy just gave him the RKO, and honestly, it was started before it was over. It's kind of sucked too, because R-Truth is definitely a legend. Just remember how long he's been doing this, and I kind of think we needed the visual of Orton punting him right in the skull. Now, he was going to do it, because he changed his mind, because again, voices in his head probably going, do it, Randy, do it. He was like, yeah, I'm going to do it, until of course, for what, the 9th time, we had an interruption, and it was the Big Show, and despite being very concerned for his friend, he just strolled down to the ring. That made me laugh. Anyway, the fallout from all of this is that Randy Orton challenged the Big Show to an unsanctioned match next week on Raw. Now, I do appreciate it's not the pay-per-view because that would have been overkill, but why are they having an unsanctioned match? This is wrestling. You two are feuding. You can just have a normal match. Why wouldn't WWE sanction? I know, we know you two don't like each other, but what do you think this is? A place where we fight? We are gentlemen. We will not sign off on it, but if you want to do it illegally, go ahead. Even still, I think this is going to be good, and all of this kicked ass. MVP then told us that he would win on Sunday and planted more seeds that he'd trying to recruit Cedric Alexander because he sent him something in the post, and Ricochet was like, well, you didn't tell me about that, and even though Alexander tried to calm this down, you can just tell. And then Lashley said that he would beat Ricochet later in a match, and Dolph Ziggler attacked Drew McIntyre while he was being interviewed. I mean, it basically turned into a big brawl, but it was kind of to remind you, yes, that is a match happening in a few days. Bobby then indeed lived up to his word and he kicked the absolute shib out of Ricochet. He dived at him at one point, he caught him in the full Nelson, and Richard O'Shea tapped out in around about 2 seconds, and then Bobby Lashley saw Cedric Alexander and thought, I'm gonna do the same thing to you. Now, it is a shame that these two are basically being jobbed out, but I love the push of MVP. I love the push of Bobby Lashley. If MVP does win the US title on Sunday, I ain't gonna be mad, so at least we're actually behind a couple of people, and it was a clean win. I ain't being no hypocrite. Up. But then there was more craziness backstage because Charlie Caruso chased down the Big Show. It's like, Big Show, I can't believe we're having an unsanctioned match, and it sounded like you accepted. And Big Show then went, yes, I accepted, and he just ran away. What happens sometimes on Raw? I had also forgotten by this point that we were supposed to have a women's tag title match, which goes to show how much the announcer and the commentary team talked about this, but thank everything we did, because this was so good, it's getting up. There was no nonsense either. Kairi Sane, Asuka, Bayley and Sasha Banks were just allowed to have a really good back and forth matchup and make me sometimes go, oh, amazing, the Kabuki Warriors are going to win, even though they didn't. We also had some fun beforehand when Bayley and Sasha Banks played a video of them, which I think they were meant to have been put together, and it was good, so bravo to those two for getting really good at video editing. Naturally, Sasha and Bales kept attacking their opponents behind the referee's back to try and gain the advantage, because they are a couple of idiots, and I think the best bit is when Asuka had Sasha Banks locked in the Asuka lock, and Bayley came in to make the save, and Kairi Sane just popped up from the abyss and took her out. I thought that was going to be the finish, but Sasha was able to get to the ropes. 10 out of 10. And then there was the finish too. Kairi Sane was running wild and she hit the insane elbow and she hit the Alabama slam, but somehow Sasha Banks was able to counter all of that into the bank statement. Kairi Sane tapped out, and Sasha Banks and Bayley are still your tag team champions. And look at that, WWE, you did a clean finish. Do I now look at the Kabuki Warriors and think, what a bunch of flute-playing losers? No, I don't. I'm like, oh, they were so close. But of course they fell to the champions, because the champions are the champions, and the champions should be the best. Please do more of this, WWE. Just stick to a plan and stick to a path and head off in that direction. Of course, the other highlight on this episode of Raw is that we didn't have one surprise roll-up. We still had the distraction and the stupid DQ, but maybe this is the pathway to better times. And overall, I quite like this episode of Raw, even though it had some stupid bits in it. Up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling, then do the 3 things of glory. Go to WhatCulture.com and read. Follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and while you're here, watch more videos on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you as always for joining me, and I will see you throughout the week.